Teams, systems, cash. Those are the three things that you need to leverage in order to grow your business in a healthy manner. That is the conviction of Bill Flynn, guest today on Construction Genius. My name is Eric Anderton. Thank you for listening to the show. My discussion today with Bill is going to be extremely helpful to you. You're going to enjoy the insights that he shares. You're going to be able to use them and apply them in your business. Bill is an author and a speaker. In the show notes, there are links to his book as well as to his website. So feel free to check him out. Hit him up and let him know that you found him through Construction Genius. And enjoy my discussion today with Bill. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Bill, welcome to Construction Genius. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Eric. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
I am as well. You have a conviction that a company can grow at a pace that they want to grow at if they focus on three specific things. Can you tell us about what those three things are?
Yes. And just so you know, it's certainly my thinking, but I've been studying this for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And I've been studying success. So there are lots and lots of examples of companies that can do that. And what I study in success is not really even decades, it's generations and centuries. If you look at those kinds of companies, they generally do the same few things really, really well. Okay. And that is, they understand that performance is a team sport. 80% of us or more are on at least one team at work. Yet we do not teach people how to run teams really well. We just sort of assume they can do it and hope they'll figure it out. But it's a skill. So that's one thing. The second is, like in construction, it's building a house. A house is one system, basically. It's made up of a bunch of subsystems, but it's one big system, especially if you think of the envelope, right? And you can put more R factor in the walls, or you can put a heavier AC unit or whatever to make up for things. But you can also, if you put more R in the walls, you don't need as heavy as of an AC unit. So you can balance the components of the system to optimize the system. Same thing happens in business, is if you understand really a few key things about your business, your three main constituencies in any business are your employees, your core customers, not all customers, your best customers, ones who love you and who you love. And then I call it the market, but basically it's the competitors and the rivals and other things, the industry itself, sort of understanding that those three constituencies are always the main thing. And we do a really good job at the beginning when we start a company, because we can't help but be in touch with those three groups. But as we grow, we begin to separate ourselves as a management team, as a leadership team, from those constituencies. And that leads, I believe, to potentially a downfall in the business, or at least a slowing or a struggling within the business.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So team, systems, and cash. Let's begin with team.
Okay. I didn't do cash yet, but that's okay.
You didn't do cash.
We didn't do cash.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So cash should be your primary financial growth metric. If you want to grow as a business, you must invest, and you generally have to invest in front of growth. Yes. So you have to have the cash. So your strategy and execution systems that are sort of that systematic, the components of what I just mentioned, the main parts, will drive your cash for you, or you have to borrow it from other people. Friends and family, investors, whatever. I'm a big fan of don't borrow unless it's a friend or a family that isn't ever going to expect your money back, isn't going to get into your shorts in the business. That's okay. But everyone else, try to avoid them like the plague.
So you begin with team. Why do you begin with team?
Because people are crazy.
Yes, they are.
We're all irrational, highly emotional, impulsive beings. Yeah. Until you understand how that is how it is, you will never be as good a leader as you can be.
Yes.
So that's one. The second I already mentioned, which is most things get done in a team fashion. And so understanding how to create a set of weird individual spiky people and creating that as a cohesive unit is a very excellent skill. And an example I have is Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm not a Michigan fan or whatever, so I apologize to all the Michigan fans, but it's a really good story. So if you follow Ohio State, they were really a tremendous football team from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Mm-hmm. And then they started to fall off. What happened was they started to put those little Buckeyes on the helmet.
Right.
If you remember. Now, the reason that they did it was for individual performance. Mm-hmm. And over a number of decades, the football program began to fail because the people on the team were much more interested in getting more Buckeyes for themselves than to help themselves, than to help the team. They put themselves in front of the team. And this guy, Jim Tressel, came in 1970, 80, whatever it was. And he said, I have a bunch of people who are just out for themselves. I need to change this environment. So he kept the Buckeyes, but he changed the incentive to be about the unit. So if the defensive unit had a sack, everyone got a Buckeye. If the offensive unit did something well, everyone got one. If the special teams did, they got one. So he did it. And slowly, if you now know, the last 10 or 15 years, Ohio State is a top five. They're always competing for the national championship. And this year, again, they competed for the national championship. They got beat by Alabama, but they were still in it because he created that environment. And then Urban Meyer, I think, took over and continued that. There was someone in between who dropped it, and they dropped a little bit, but Urban Meyer came back in and did it. That's, to me, an excellent example, especially if you like sports, of how to create that team environment. People are spiky. You have to understand that.
Okay, so let's talk about that. I think it's really interesting because, you said at the beginning that you've spent a lot of time going back in time studying successful businesses, and every individual has a worldview, and you said something very specific about who people are. And how does a business owner's worldview impact the way that they run their business?
Oh, it impacts it tremendously, especially if they're not humble and they're not vulnerable. You have to realize, maybe 100 years ago, or whatever, when we were into routinized work and you were the excellent technician, then maybe you could get away being the genius with 1,000 helpers. You just sort of knew everything and told her what to do. But that's impossible now.
Right.
There are too many different things. Technology is moving at such a pace. You just can't do it. So you have to understand, my job isn't to actually run the business anymore. It's to create the environment so other people can run the business. Now, depending on your size, there's a variation there, right? Sometimes you have to do more. But as you get larger, you should do less and less of the day-to-day and more about creating the environment and thinking about the future.
Okay. If
you can do that as a leader and you hire well and you treat them well and you help them to learn and grow, then they'll take care of you.
Excellent.
So that's what I've learned.
So let me ask you this about leading a team. You said it's a skill. Give me a little bit more on that. What are some of the key skills of team leadership that in your experience have had a tremendous positive impact in businesses?
So the way I like to break things down into fundamentals and principles. So what you need to first understand is, okay, we have a team. How do you describe the ideal outcome of this team, right? If this team was working on all cylinders, forget who's in it. Right? So let's say marketing, right? Let's make it real simple. The marketing is a team. There might be sub teams underneath, but we'll call marketing one big team. When marketing is working really well, what are they doing? They're generating qualified leads at the pace that sales can produce deals out of them. That's their job. If they can produce enough qualified leads for sales is happy, etc., then they're doing their best. Now, how do they do that? They have to do social media. They have to do trade shows, they have to do events, they have to have messaging, they have to make sure they have good products and things. I mean, there's lots of stuff underneath, right? So that's what you do is say, okay, if I'm going to build a team of people that does that, what are the subcomponents of that team that would make that optimal? And then you sort of just keep going down and down and down until you really understand what are the teams of teams that make up the things that we need to do that. Who are the individuals that we need? Some people are introverts, some people are extroverts, some people are highly detailed, some people are more visionary. And it's the mix of things that that work really well. And I apologize because I'm in New England and it's probably an overblown story, but Bill Belichick is excellent at this.
Sure.
Right. Now he had a wonderful person in Tom Brady who just always tried to get better and better and better.
Right.
You see those things from the turbine when he was a thing, he just looked horrible. And then you see him at 40, he looks way better. Yeah. And he was smarter, he could throw better, he could see the field, all those things. So he used Tom, who had this brain that could see the field differently than most people and improve the skills. So he surrounded him with people to help support him, right? Okay. Some were running back, some were others, et cetera. And then Josh McDaniel, who's the coordinator for the offense, created plays that took the biggest advantage of those skills. Okay. So when you build a team, you want to build on strengths. Right. And the combination of strengths. I am not a fan of saying you have to create a well-rounded person. None of us is well-rounded.
Right.
And if you keep working on your weaknesses, you just won't fail, but doesn't mean you will excel.
Right.
You excel when you work on your strengths. So figure out the strengths of your team, try to get them to do those things as often as possible.
Okay. So
in the context of the team, right? To the ultimate goal.
Yeah, so it's important. One thing I took there is if you're going to have a successful team, you have to first define the outcome that the team is responsible for, and then figure out the components within that team and how they function together in order to achieve that outcome. Okay. Now, you don't believe in well-rounded people. Many of the folks that I work with, let's say they're in project management or they're a project executive, and they may execute, let's say, 60 to 70% of their job really well. But then there's that 30% of their job where they struggle, and it's not really in their wheelhouse of skill. And it's not so bad that you don't want to get rid of them or something like that. But how do you work with that person who still has that area of responsibility under their job title, but they may not quite be at the level that they need to be?
So then you take that high level thing and you break it down into, okay, so here are the 4 key functions underneath marketing that we need, right? And then under that, you say, what are the key outcomes of that particular function? Maybe 3, 4, 5 of them. And then what I do is have everyone do that, right? And there's a process I use with that I stole from one of my coaching friends, which is called the 3x5 card. Imagine a 3x5 card, right? So it says project management. Right. It doesn't matter if this person's in the job or not. You say, here is what the optimal project management. These are the 3, 4, 5 key outcomes, and here are the metrics that we use to measure them.
Yep.
And what I do is I say, you as the leader of that team, ask the project manager to make his own card, and you make a card. And you get together and you compare cards, and you do not leave that meeting until you come out with one card. Right now, what you do is say, okay, let's look at this card and say, which of these things are on here do you really love doing? You may be good at it, you may not, you probably are, but you love doing it. Time flies when you do it. Great, let's put a green dot against that thing. What's any on these things that you just hate doing? Put a red dot. Now everyone does it, and then you compare everyone's cards. Sometimes one of the functions in someone's cards, someone else could do and loves to do.
I see.
You know what? Just give it to them. We're making it all up anyway.
Right.
Who cares who does what? As long as we reach our ideal outcome. Then you start having people be more engaged, more productive, more happy, more fulfilled at work. Now, it's not going to always work out that way. There's going to be some you suck at and you don't like to do, but that happens, right? Then you say, okay, when we start to grow and want to grow the team, let's find someone who loves to do the things that are important, and some of us suck at.
Right.
And that's your next component. That's
a very good framework there, that 3x5. I like particularly how you, and I do the same thing with my clients. I tell them to identify those outcomes and then ask them to ask their direct reports what the outcomes are, because if they're not on the same page, that may be where some of the disconnect is. But then that green dot, red dot idea, that's an excellent idea as well. What's interesting to me is that I think of some of the larger companies that I work with, they're, $500 million, $1 billion in revenue, and they perhaps they don't feel as flexible as what you just described there, where you're sitting down and saying, well, if you don't like that, we'll just find someone else to do it. Their mindset might be, well, if you don't like that, that's kind of the job. How do you deal with that situation?
Yeah, why? Why is that the job? Who decided that was the job?
Well, let's say it's a corporate policy. And if you're a project manager, this is your job description. And if you're struggling in one of these areas, well, we want to help you to skill up in that area. And if you can't, then maybe you're not a fit for the position.
Maybe, as long as they've decided that position can be done by one person.
Okay.
This is the thing that we do. We assume things that aren't necessarily true, right? So you could say that there are components of a job that involve being a really good extrovert and a really good introvert. Is that fair to the human being who generally, there are some ambiverts, but mostly we skew to one or the other, right? If you're saying someone who loves to do networking, getting out and talking to people, and you know what, half the job is sitting at your desk and typing into a spreadsheet and doing this, guess what? Half the time they're going to be miserable.
Right.
Should you fire them, or did you make the mistake? So you should decide, is this something that I can be flexible on or not? If you can't, and it's the person, then that's fine. Try to skill them up. If you can't, then move them out. But you have to be honest with yourself.
This is really great, because I think one of the things this speaks to is almost the joy that we can find in a business, that we can do it the way that we want to do it.
Exactly.
We can structure our businesses and our companies any way that we want in order to achieve that outcome. We don't have to be bound by necessarily traditions or the way that other people do it, though we can find great wisdom in those traditions and the ways that other people do it. We can create something original and something unique to ourselves.
Exactly. And the best companies generally are pretty unique, right? I think one of the best examples I love to give is Google Maps and Waze, right? Okay. So Google Maps, they made a great map, and they put MapQuest out of business, or mostly out of business, right?
Right.
Now, because they thought they were in the maps business. But then Waze said, why do people use maps? One of the really big reasons we use maps is to get from point A to point B on time.
Yep.
Okay, if that's really the job, a really key job that people hire maps for, what would I create to allow them to do that? So they create a completely different product in a different way, and they manage their systems and people completely differently in order to do that. You can apply that sort of creative model to your business. It's design thinking is really what it is.
Yes.
Applying design thinking to your business as a structure and as a model.
Okay. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Give me, what do you mean by design thinking?
So design thinking is when really similar to what we just said there, is that think about the outcome. What are you trying to accomplish? What is sort of the ideal thing?
Yep.
An example I love, which I think most people get is, and this is a real life example. I can't remember what campus it was, but they built a campus, buildings and things. And they said, well, we need to figure out where to put the sidewalks, right? Where people would walk. And the designer said, don't do anything. He said, just let people do what they want. And then once you see the tracks, that's where you put your sidewalks, right? Is understand that you have a constituency that you're trying to support.
Yes.
And so the design is about thinking about all of those things together. And there's a great design, there's two great design theories that I like. One is called Maya, which is most advanced yet acceptable.
Uh-huh.
Right. So if we do things that people won't get but are awesome, then they won't adopt them.
Right.
And then the other is there's this great quote I love by it's Alexander Saint-Exupéry, I believe is his name. He's a French guy, and he said, and it's about design: is perfection is not when there's more things that you can do; it's when there's nothing left to take away.
Mm.
This is Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs was a design thinker. Yep. How do I make this thing as simple as possible, but not too simple?
Yes. You
can keep that in how you build your business and how you support your customers. It's a great theory to help you in lots of your business and in your life.
It's really interesting because, with the, I think about it in construction. Construction is such a complex business. And I just had this picture of all the different software packages that folks use, all the different equipment that people use, all the different ways to skin the cat, so to speak. And sometimes it's extremely overwhelming how many different ways you could run a business, and to go through that process of simplification without oversimplifying. That's a journey of a lifetime almost when you're running a company.
Yeah, exactly. Like what is the purpose of this building?
Yes.
That we're building, right?
Yes.
How can we describe the ideal outcome of this building? Okay, what would we do in order to make that happen?
Yes.
We don't typically do that. We go with your operational sides. Oh, we need the refrigeration guy, we need the construction guy, the general contractor, blah, blah, and then get them together and say, figure it out.
Yep.
But we don't give them purpose. We love purpose. Our brain is so focused on purpose. If you can give it a purpose, it works much better.
Yep. That's excellent. Okay, let's go from teams. Let's go to this idea of systems. What do you mean here by systems? Give me some more the systems in place here.
Yeah. So a business is just one big system, right? It is a bunch of components that are working together in this environment. Generally, I see most businesses as one huge system made up of 7 subsystems.
Okay.
And the metaphor I use is a house. So imagine your first subsystem is your foundation, and that's your cultural system. That's your core purpose, core values, core objectives, et cetera.
Right.
Then you have a leadership system, which is we call a cohesive leadership system, meaning that you and the leadership team know how to fight in a healthy way. You should disagree on a regular basis, but do it in a respectful way. Tell each other the kind truth. Yep. If you can't do that, you'll never uncover all the things you need to uncover.
Yep.
People will be lying and hiding and faking all the time, which you don't want. Second is a human system, which is about A players. A players are the best investment you'll ever make in your business. They are 2 to 3 times more productive than anyone else, and you never pay them that amount.
Right.
You can never do better than either finding and or growing people to be A players. And A players, what are A players? They don't need to be managed. They meet or exceed expectations on a regular basis, and they're autonomous.
Yep.
They want to do more. They're always challenging themselves to do more. The next is just sort of the rest of the group, the team leaders and the other leaders, et cetera. And then you have 4 other systems, but 3 main ones. You have strategy, execution, and cash.
Okay.
And so you can imagine that the foundation is the cultural, the sort of the walls, the 4 walls, if you will, of the building are your leadership team and then the A players, and then the roof, if you will, is the leaders and everyone else, frontline managers, et cetera.
Okay.
Then in the middle, just like to run a house, you need plumbing and electricity and appliances and all that stuff. That sits in the middle. That's the strategy, execution, and cash. They sit in the middle.
Right.
And if you imagine the strategy and execution and cash is a circle, and they're connected, because what you do is you come up with a decent strategy and then you execute it and you find out where it wasn't as decent as you thought it was and you fix it. And then you execute it some more and you never end your strategy. Your strategy will always keep going.
Right.
It may have sort of a North Star that you're moving towards, but external elements will force you to change it, right? COVID, technology, whatever.
Right.
And then if you do those things really well, you will generate cash because strategy is top line revenue, execution is bottom line revenue, and that produces cash. The last system is underneath. And this is the thing that really, it's sort of like in my part of the world, this isn't a big deal because most of the houses are built on bedrock. Right. But in some parts of the country, it's on soil and you have to do soil testing and make sure that you can build this awesome house and then it will sink.
Right. It's like in the Bay Area.
This is the thing underneath. This is vision, right? If you want to be a leader, we have all these things. Leaders have to have charisma and humility and integrity and blah, blah, blah. No, they don't. And by the way, they don't. Steve Jobs had not a lot of integrity. Right. Warren Buffett is not very charismatic. Right. But what you need to do is you need to have followers. How do you create followers? You need to have a vision. You need to have a vision that is so clear and so vivid that they can see it as if it already happened. Right. Then they can decide if they want to follow you and help you make that happen or not. Yeah. If you don't give that to them, then they're just wandering around. Okay. So the vision is really important. Then if you're a leader, it's about growth and decision making. If you want to grow, it's about change and decision making. Sorry. If you want to grow, you have to be comfortable with change. Growth is change. So have a change process framework, have a decision-making framework. So when we do change the same way all the time. Doesn't matter if it's a 2 or 10 minute thing or 2 or 10 month thing. We do the same process.
Okay. So let me just interrupt you.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I've got those 7 because you went pretty fast through that. The first one is leadership. Excuse me. The foundation.
Cultural.
Is cultural. Yep. And then, and by cultural, what do you mean by that? Just define that real quick.
This is who we are. This is how we behave.
Okay. Who we are, how we behave. So values, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Values, purpose, that kind of stuff.
Values, purpose. Okay. Then leadership.
Yep.
And A players. Did you put those 2 together?
So if you see just a 2D house, those will be the things on the side. So foundation is here.
Yep.
Leadership and human systems are here.
Yep. And
then above is the team system on top.
Yep.
Like the roof. And then in the middle is a circle with strategy and execution at 12 and 6 o'clock, and then cash right in the middle where the hands would pivot.
Yep.
That's what it would look like. And underneath this vision, change, decision is sort of underneath the foundation.
Do you have a graphic of that I could put in the show notes?
Yeah, it's in my book, but I can send you something. It's actually on my website too. I have it on my website.
Excellent. Great. So we'll have that graphic in the show notes and we'll link to that as well so that you guys can get that. Excellent. Okay, so let me go back. You started talking about change and having the same change process, regardless of how big or small the change is. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so describe to me a change process that you have seen to work very well in companies.
Sure. So there are 3 that I like, but one that I use the most. There's one by the Heath brothers that they wrote in a book called Switch. Yep. There's another one by Jonah Berger, who's a professor at Wharton, which he calls Catalyst, I think. And then the one I love the most is by a bakery that is in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's called Zingerman's. And they call it bottom line change. And they basically say there are 5 steps to change. First is you must have a vision for your change, right? Describe for us the ideal outcome of this. So you're basically selling this thing. Yep. This is why we should change. Generally, we sell after we decide to change.
Yeah, right.
And that's where we have the problem. Then you have to say, okay, great. Who should we share this with? Who can give us some feedback on what we're doing? Right. Then let's figure out how we can provide the set of people who should know what this thing is before we start doing it. Then we need to say who's going to implement this. Okay, they're going to write the actual plan to do it. Then we'll do the change. 5 steps. Okay. We almost always do them in the other order, and we're selling at the end. Okay. And
so first you got vision.
Yep. Vision.
Second, who do I need feedback from about the change?
What's a constituency that we can put together to just sort of run it by and see what they say so I can make sure that my vision is good?
Good. Third, figure out the information that we need to provide people in order for the change to be able to happen. Fourth, implement the change.
Nope. Fourth, put the team together who's going to actually write the plan to make the change happen. So the people who are most impacted by the change should actually write the plan. Okay. Excellent. And then do the change.
Then do the change. Okay. Excellent. Very good. Very good.
That's called Bottom Line Change. It's by Zingerman's, which again, you can get that online too. It's not my thing.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Steal like an artist. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's dive in a little bit more about systems. What is in your mind, if you took one of all 7 of those, which is the one that people fail the most at in your experience?
Leadership team is not cohesive.
Okay, let's talk about that. What is the one reason leadership teams are not cohesive?
They're afraid.
And what are they afraid of?
Looking stupid, being ridiculed, coming up with a stupid idea and being made fun of.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Whatever.
It's interesting. Yeah, one of my sons, my oldest son, he got a pair of AirPods recently. He bought them refurbished off of eBay, but he told his friends that he got them from Apple, new, because he didn't want to look stupid getting the refurbished ones. I was like, dude, man, you got to upgrade that game.
Exactly. Yeah, this is something that Amy Edmondson has been, it's called psychological safety. She's been researching it for decades. And we don't create psychological safe environments. And part of it is because it's not necessarily, I said a lot of negative things, but some of it is that we don't want to disappoint our leader.
Yeah.
So we don't want to tell him or her what's wrong.
Yes.
Especially if we don't. I had a boss one who said, you should never, ever bring me a problem without a solution.
Right.
Guess what that does? If I don't have a solution, he doesn't know what the problem is.
Yeah.
And we can never fix it.
Yep. Let's talk about that then. Psychological safety. How does a leader, in your experience, create psychological safety in their organization? Genuine psychological safety.
They must get comfortable with, I don't know, I'm sorry, and I need help. It has to come from them.
So it has to come from them.
You have to show that you are a human being. We talked about earlier. We're flawed, we're emotional, we're rational, etc. We don't know everything. As soon as you start to show that you don't know everything, then your team will feel more comfortable. But if you're always the genius, then they're always going to feel inferior, and they're never going to share to the extent that you'd like.
Okay, so let me push back on that. Let's go back to Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs doesn't strike me as someone who would say any of those 3 things.
Yeah, the first Steve Jobs didn't, right? So there's if you read Walter Isaacson's book, right? He talks about the first Steve Jobs, and he says, yeah, people told him that you can't put a $2,500 hard drive in that thing. No one's going to buy it. And he said, screw you, I'm doing it, whatever. And guess what happened? Nobody bought it.
Right.
And then he went to Next. He became humble. He started to talk to people, and then he said, okay, I'm going to be more about direction, and I'm going to have Johnny Ives or the IDEO people or whatever take what I want and make it.
Okay.
He became more humble. He wasn't the humblest guy, right, but he became more humble.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Better. It's interesting. Yeah, I even though that change happened, I know what you're saying, but the I'm sorry part, I think that's probably the hardest part for a lot of folks, particularly people who are high performers.
Yeah. And yeah, I think he said I'm sorry a little more often.
A little more? Okay, fair enough. We'll give him. And you know what's interesting though, because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, it's almost as if you can start practicing it before you need it, so to speak, then it's really going to benefit you.
Yeah, because when you actually need it, it's probably in a crisis situation, and you're not going to be able to do it as well.
Yes.
Until you got to have those things down, right? That's why football teams, they practice over and over and over again, the same exact thing. So when it comes time and there needs to be a quick change, there's no thinking. You can't think in crisis. You have to do. And so, yes, your brain does not work well when it's under pressure. It goes into fight, flight, or freeze too often. And the great cognitive capability up front turns off.
Yep.
You don't want that. You want it to just go into automatic mode.
So let's now go to talk about cash. We've talked about teams. We've talked about systems. Now cash. Why should a company use cash as their primary metric?
Because it costs money to grow. And
okay, let's talk about that.
I don't care who you are. If you want to grow, you have to invest in front. If you say, I want to make $10 million more a year, guess what you have to do? You have to hire another salesperson. They cost money, and you have to train them. And by the way, if you hired badly, you wasted a lot of money and a lot of time.
Okay.
Also, the other benefit of understanding that cash is your growth metric is exactly in the situation that we're in, is that if you want to survive the eventual ups and downs, you need a buffer, right? Bill Gates said he wanted 12 months of cash. No matter how big Microsoft was, he always had 12 months of cash in the bank, so he could survive these times. So I instruct my team all the time is, okay, we do 3-year planning basically as a really tight exercise. I say, great, how much will all that cost? Okay, it's going to cost us $4 million. Okay, great. Let's break that down into yearly chunks. How much in year 1, year 2? Okay, how are we going to generate that money ahead of when we need it, so when we get there, we can spend it? Right. And then, by the way, make sure you're also putting money aside, because as you grow and you have more expenses, you want to make sure you also keep up with that, having that safety net, just in case, Because we're in 2021. We have had three economic existential crises. We've had 9/11, we've had 2008, and COVID.
Yep.
Every 6 to 8 years, according to most economic theory, something bad happens.
Yeah.
If you're not prepared, you're going to go out of business or have a really hard time.
Okay, so there's two elements here. It's really interesting, and I think that most companies, some companies rather, they miss out on one of these two. But there's the element of cash for growth, and there's the element of cash for safety. Which one do you think companies neglect if they neglect one of those two?
We are optimists.
Yes.
Especially in America.
Yep.
Americans have the ultimate optimism bias.
Right.
Everything's going to be fine forever. And so I just need to keep investing and keep going. And then every 6 to 8 years, something happens and a number of us go out of business.
And so you think in your mind, is it the 12 months that you need? What's the number?
That is an excellent question, Eric. I don't really have a solid answer. My general theory is, okay, take your worst situation that you've ever had where you struggled for the longest and add a month.
Okay, that's very good.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just making that up, right? Because you don't really know.
It's good. Yep. So take your worst situation and add a month. And then going back to the planning process, this is really good. So you come up with your 3-year plan. Everyone's pumped up. But then you've got to ask the hard question, how are we going to finance this? How are we going to make this happen from a cash perspective?
Yes, exactly.
But money's cheap right now, Bill. Why don't I just run out and get myself a loan or use my line of credit?
You totally can borrow. But here's the deal, right? So there are lots of different ways to get money. And depending on how you get it, if you go to investors that their ultimate goal is to get their money back, then you've just decided to sell your company.
Yeah.
If you go to a bank, that's different. If you go to friends and family, that's different. If you're going to a situation where they're not expecting any big return on their money other than getting it back and with some interest, then that's okay. But the problem is, of course, is if you borrow too much and you get into a situation that you can't meet the payments, then you're back to the same situation.
Yes.
So I'm a big fan of growth for growth's sake is the ideology of a cancer cell. Don't do it. Do it in a way that you believe with the information you have that you can do it in a healthy way. If not, most companies struggle. Well, first, most companies go out of business. If you started a company in 1994, you had a 50% chance of making it to 1999. Right? And you had a 25% chance of making it another 10 years after that.
Yep.
Right? So, and by the way, that's just the death. Now there's a big lump underneath that curve. That's the people who are struggling. Most companies struggle.
Yes.
They are hoping and guessing.
Yes.
That's my goal. My thing is you don't have to. That's what this book says, right? Take the guesswork out of growth. You do not have to guess.
Yep.
There are a few things: teams, systems, and cash. If you focus on those things, it might take a year or 2 or 3 to really shore it up. But if you relentlessly focus on those things, it will happen.
Okay. So I'm listening to this podcast. I'm understanding this idea of teams, systems, and cash. What if I've tried some of this stuff? I failed. What advice would you give to a construction company CEO or owner about which area to begin with?
Oh, people, always people.
Okay. Right.
I mean, we do everything. We spend the money, we make the money, we make the decisions, we screw up, we do all these things. People make up teams. There's a great example. General Sam McChrystal took over JSOC 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was a disaster. We were getting our ass kicked by people, by these people who were not nearly as technologically savvy, certainly not all these things. And we were getting our ass kicked. Why? Because they were fighting a different war than we were.
Yep.
We were fighting a hierarchical command and control war, and they were fighting a distributed war.
Yes. So
what he said is, we're going to change the way we do stuff. And he had a phone call every single day with, I think, 7,000 people on it. Right. And what it did is everyone shared information. And then from that information, they said, okay, we got it. We're going to go do that. And they did it every day. And they turned the tide of the war for us because they started to understand who their sort of their rival was, and how to beat them, or at least beat them at their own game. That's about people. It's about changing how you do things, right? Hiring well, treating well, all those things. If you can create an environment where people are safe and feel like they can be their best selves at work, and they believe in what you believe in, they will do wonderful things for you without ever being asked.
So it starts with the people.
Yeah, every time.
We began with this idea that you can grow at a pace that you want to grow if you do those 3 things of teams, systems, and cash. What if I'm beginning to feel kind of out of control, what do I need to do to begin to get back into a place where I'm comfortable?
Well, I probably asked sort of where are you out of control? What does that mean? Often, so I used to be a business speaker for years, and many of them were out of control. And it was because, and out of control to them was, yeah, I'm doing this thing and it's fun, whatever, but I don't see my friends. I don't see my family. I don't go to the gym anymore. That to them, that was out of control.
Yep.
And I said, okay, tell me about your team. And would you enthusiastically rehire everyone on your team now that you know who they are?
Okay, say that again slowly.
Sorry,
please.
I'm from Boston.
I know. But say what you said slowly because it is very, very important.
Yes. Would you enthusiastically rehire everyone on your team, your direct team, again, now that you know who they are? If the answer is no, that's where you got to start. That's probably why your life is a mess, because you're doing your job and their job and the other guy's job.
Okay. I just want to wave a flag here for everyone listening. You need to ask that question of your leadership team on a regular basis. And the reason why you're struggling in your company in most cases is because you have the wrong people in the wrong positions and you're unwilling to do something about it.
Exactly. Can I add one more to that?
Please
This
do.
is a practical show.
Please
Strategy.
do.
Okay. This is what I'd like if every leader, every hierarchical leader, not leader of a team, but the actual leader, the head of the company, whatever.
CEO,
I recommend you do this. Your next Monday senior leadership team meeting, ask everyone in the group on the spot. Don't tell them to prepare. Ask them all to write down their version of your current company strategy.
Excellent.
And then everyone shares it out loud.
Yep.
And if they're not the same, figure that out. Get them all on the same page.
Okay, so let me say this. If it's not all the same, whose fault is that?
It's the leader's fault.
Thank you.
It's your job. Your job is to create the environment. Your job is to help set the strategy, not actually do it yourself.
Yep.
You want help from everyone, but you're saying you might have to decide that's our strategy. Because here's what happened. And this is why I related to the other thing is when I hear often people come to me and they say, I say, what's your biggest struggle? Well, mostly it's operational. We don't hit things on time. We're not doing the right things. We're not doing well. Our customers complain. That's operation. That's execution. I'm like, great. And then I ask them that question about strategy. And I say, okay, could it be that everyone is executing really well on their version of the strategy?
Yeah, look at that.
And that's your job, is to get them all on one strategy. Then maybe they'll do a better job executing. Maybe it's not them. Maybe it is you. I don't know.
Yes. I think it's always useful if we start with ourselves, because it's easy, obviously, to point the finger at others. And going back to the earlier discussion about I'm sorry or I need help, it's hard for us to do that. But if we can look in the mirror, if we can do the hard work on ourselves, then that'll have a tremendous impact on our teams.
Exactly.
Okay, so Bill, let's get to some action items.
Yeah.
Give us 3 takeaways. What are we going to do to put what we've talked about here into action immediately?
Okay, I gave you a bunch already.
You did.
But so let me see if I can do some others. Okay, first thing I always ask every one of my leaders to do, this is the leader, head of company, is you must have a vision. You must have a vision. You must write it down, and it must be not a sentence. It must be pages. It must be so vivid and so clear that everyone gets it. You must then use that liberally, share it with all your key stakeholders, especially your employees, and even more so, the people who are new coming to the business.
Yep.
Say, great, we think you're a great candidate. Here, this is what we're doing. Are you on board or not? This is your final chance to say, I don't want to do that.
Right.
So you have the right people on the bus, right, so to speak, as you sort of mentioned a little bit, the Jim Collins thing.
Yep.
So that's one. The next thing is, work on teams.
Yep.
Right, so I do something called the key process flow map. It's in my book. How do we make money? What are the key functions that drive the money? Understand what those are, what the inputs and outputs of each of those things are.
Yep.
And then grade yourself on each of those areas, red, yellow, green.
Yep.
And I love red, yellow, green. I stole this from Alan Mullally, who used to run Ford and Boeing.
Yep.
Red is, it's broken and I don't know how to fix it. I don't have a plan. Yellow is, it's broken, but I do have a plan that I think will fix it and we're on it. Green is, as far as we can tell, it's working great.
Nice. Beautiful.
That's it.
Beautiful.
And do that on everything. Do that on your priorities. Do that on your key process flow map. Do that on anything you can. It's a simple thing. And by the way, if it's green, don't talk about it.
Yeah. Nice touch. Nice touch.
Right. And then the last thing is strategy. Strategies, other than people, strategy is super hard.
Yep.
Right. And you should be working on strategy on a regular basis. Set up a strategic council meeting once a week. Talk about big strategic things. Are we really the only choice for what we do? If not, how do we do that?
Yep.
There's lots of topics I give. They're in my book as well. And then if you start doing that, then execution is super simple. It's three things. It's priorities, metrics, and meetings.
Yep.
Now, we're okay at priorities. We're generally okay at metrics. We suck at meetings.
Oh, yeah, we do.
We are horrible at meetings. We run them badly.
Yes.
I have, for action items, you can go to my website. I have a set of meetings that you can, of suggestions, which are your daily huddle, your weekly team meeting, and your weekly one-on-one with your team, and your monthly meeting. And I have a set agenda that you could follow.
That's great.
That's another action item. So I think I gave you more than 3.
No, that's beautiful. Oh, beautiful. So tell us how we can get in touch with you, Bill.
Sure. So best thing is my website, which is catalystgrowthadvisors.com.
Link in the show notes.
Yep. And all of my contact info is there. You can set up a time with me. You can download my book for free from there if you want to do a PDF, or you can download it off Amazon or Audible. And there's lots of exercises on there. I have 25 or so exercises that you can do on yourself that go with my book. And there's a ton of resources. I have 100 books that I've read over the last 10, 12, 15 years that I think are the best books I've ever read on how to do this. I break them down by category. You can do that as well. There's a lot of stuff on there.
And so tell us your book again, please.
Further, Faster. Here it is. There you go.
Oh, look at that. Further, Faster. That's beautiful. And so you said you can download that for free on the website?
Yes, if you want. If you don't want to pay the $9, you don't have to, but it's a PDF, so it's kind of a pain in the ass to read.
It is, but you can get it on Amazon. That's beautiful. Okay, well, Bill, you've been very generous with your time, and those show notes and the link to the book on Amazon will be in the show notes, all the links. Let me just ask you this last thing. You're in Boston. So if someone's going to fly out to Boston, what's a fun thing to do in Boston?
So we're the seat of American democracy, right? So we have Lincoln Concord right nearby, Concord and Lexington right nearby. If you want to understand, and to me, American democracy is a great metaphor for business, right? It was based upon values. It was upon a vision of what we're going to be. It was based upon, Greek and other principles, but it was a vision. And we created this thing, which so far is doing okay. It's rocky every now and again. But so far, it is the best of all the forms of government, according to Winston Churchill. It's horrible, but it's the best of all of them.
Right.
So it's a great place to come visit and see where, things happened where we started.
I think it's an interesting thing for us to consider, going back to your earlier comment about how each of us as individuals have issues. We need to keep that in mind as we're looking at the political systems that we function within, that, those issues are going to be manifest, and we need to do our best to work through those issues without damaging each other.
Compassion. You got to have compassion, right?
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time, Bill. Today's episode was brought to you by the Construction Conclave. If you as a construction leader would like to develop your skills and get involved in a community of like-minded construction professionals who are focused on building healthy teams, profitable projects, and long-term successful businesses, then the Construction Conclave is for you. It's a private, invitation-only group of construction leaders that are focused on developing their leadership skills. We do training every single month online that looks at how to become a better leader in a very practical, straightforward way. We also have other events that build community and camaraderie so that you can associate with others who are interested in developing their skills as leaders. If you'd like more information and to see if you qualify for participating in the conclave, feel free to reach out to me, eric@ericanderton.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and thanks again for listening.